We are so excited to have you all here today for this tourism marketing workshop. This has been something that a team of volunteers have been working on for quite a few months and brainstorming about what our community might need, businesses, and even surrounding areas. So just really excited for this opportunity, and I want to thank you all for being here today because it means a lot that I feel like I know almost every face in here, but what's awesome is there's a lot of you that I don't know. So thank you for being here. The object of this workshop is, like I said before, tourism marketing. So how do we as Madisonians, and even some of you that are not from here, work with your community or your business to cast a net strategically? And the word is strategic and intentional. And how are we going to do that, and how are we going to better Madison in our case? So you'll hear a little bit more about that today. But I just want to say thank you real quick to our volunteers who helped coordinate this workshop. If you could please stand up, everybody who helped coordinate this workshop. Jenny and Max. So thank you to them. Like I said, again, they're volunteers that have been helping to organize this over the last few months. And they're also some of the brains that have helped to organize and help plan for our big announcement that we will share at the end of today's workshop. A few housekeeping items. The restroom is located just down those stairs. If you haven't known already, this is the first time this space has been used as of today. So a quick round of applause to Fairfield and its speaker. And I believe Victoria can correct me, but this is one of only 3 screens in the entire world of this size with this capacity here in Madison. So that is a pretty amazing feat that their team was able to get that finished today and that we're able to use it. So just a quick shout out and thank you to them for helping to get it all together for us, because I was here on Friday and I was like, guys, I don't know if we're going to make it, but they sure did, so thank you to them. So like I said before, just housekeeping in general, this is the first time this room has been used. So if we have any AV issues, please be patient with us as we're figuring it out a little bit. And like I said before, restrooms are going to be located downstairs. And then the happy hour after this, sponsored by German American as well, will be just down past the lobby where some of you already came into the building. So just a little FYI. So I think this time, I think we're ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and introduce my friend Jenny with German American Bank, and she'll give you another little intro, and we'll get started from there. So, Jenny, go ahead.
Done an amazing job with her and all of her volunteers with Madison Main Street and all of that great team. We're so proud of them. Today, not only do we get the privilege of sponsoring this awesome event in this awesome space, but I get to introduce a childhood friend of mine who grew up here in southeastern Indiana and has gone on to do some really big things, some really cool things. In this place called Puerto Rico. I got to visit there in January. It was awesome. And it is so rewarding and so awesome to be able to say, welcome, Leah. I'd like to introduce you to Leah Chandler.
Thank you so much, Jenny, and thank you to everybody who came here today. I was going to say, if it wasn't already official, I have traveled around the world and spoken at conferences and attended conferences, and I said to my brother, I've never seen a screen like this in any place. So the fact that it's only one of a few in the world makes sense to me. I apologize in advance. My visuals are not so great for this type of screen. So we'll share with you in a little bit of what we're going to talk about in terms of essentials for marketing. I really appreciate the introduction, Jenny, and the opportunity for Madison Main Street for me to be here today. I appreciate Fairfield for sponsoring the event and allowing us to talk with you today about some really important areas of tourism marketing. You're going to hear me say a lot during the presentation today. We could spend an entire workshop on this one section. So I've jam-packed a lot of information into all of these slides. But several of these sections in and of themselves really could be an entire day's workshop because they're big, they're meaty sections, they're really, really important to the tourism industry. So we don't have the time today to dive into each one, but I think it could be a topic for future workshops that maybe this is a series that you all are able to collaborate on together, because a lot is changing in the tourism space, as we all know, and we need to stay on top of that. Some of you are business owners, some of you are marketers, some of you are trying to do both, and these are important topics for all of us. So I want to just add a little bit of additional context to who I am. I think Matt's going to help me advance the slides here, possibly. Thanks. So this is the only time, well, I think there's one other slide I mentioned AI in, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time today on generative AI. That is, in fact, a whole other session, maybe a week's worth of sessions. It's really changing the entire game, not just for tourism and the marketing space, but it's going to really change the world. We don't have a lot of time to get into that today, but I use generative AI for this photo, so I'm going to check the box that I talked to you about generative AI. As Jenny mentioned, I'm Leah. Some of you probably know me better as just Matt's sister. I think that's how I'm known around here anymore. I worked for ad agencies for the first part of my career on tourism businesses. So I worked at an ad agency that managed the Indiana Office of Tourism Development. So I did that for 5 years, got to travel to really incredible places and see a lot of hidden gems in Indiana that, even though I was born and raised here, didn't know a lot about. Went on to do the same thing for the Missouri Division of Tourism. Then went on to Branson, where I became the Chief Marketing Officer. And so I went from agency side to client side and really got to see an entirely new part of the business, working at a DMO instead of at an ad agency. And then later got recruited to Puerto Rico, where I just finished up my 6th year in Puerto Rico. So a lot of experience in ad agency marketing, and then experience specifically in tourism and the DMO space, brand, creative, media. I've done it all. I have a special place in my heart for branding, and that's a lot of what I've worked on in the space. But what I want to talk to you about today, starting out, is the role of the DMO. So some people may not know this acronym. It's Destination Marketing Organization. Visit Madison is your DMO. In Puerto Rico, Discover Puerto Rico is the DMO. Traditionally, these organizations are not-for-profit. They're really charged with the brand development and the brand voice. So these are the people who are really going to carry through what the brand of your destination is and be really consistent with it. So what typically happens at the state level, and it happens in Puerto Rico too, is every time there's a new government administration, someone comes in with new logos and new taglines and new campaigns, and it's very hard for a destination to gain traction and equity as a tourism destination. When you have a DMO in place, that DMO is responsible for that continuity of a destination brand. So consumers really know who you are, and they're able to stay connected to you regardless of politics. I put up the last point on here because it's a question as someone in the DMO space we get asked a lot. How come you're not driving people to my business? And I think it's very, very important in terms of understanding what a DMO does do, to know that the DMO is really at the very top of the marketing funnel. So the DMO is educating consumers about what the destination is, what it offers, what is the unique selling proposition of the destination. And they should be driving people down the funnel to your businesses, to your websites, to your social media accounts. And that's where you come in, and you're then trying to capture those people that the DMO plugs into the funnel. So I think sometimes, and again, I've seen both sides of the coin, people say, well, the DMO hasn't brought any people through my front door. Well, that's really not typically the role of a DMO. They're trying to generate that brand awareness for the destination, educate consumers about who the destination is, and then you drive the traffic into your business. On the next slide, I just wanted to kind of set the table for talking about who tourism used to be 20 years ago when I started in this business. Travelers were much more simple than they are today in terms of planning a trip, in terms of how they actually traveled. It made the marketer's job a lot easier 20 years ago than it is today. I remember when I worked in Branson, and this was only 6 years ago, we were producing 300,000 print visitors guides every year, and we were getting rid of every single one of them, right? So people who came to Branson, they request it through, a little business card, or they might pick one up at a trade show. People were still using maps. My nephews came to the presentation today. They probably don't know what the map or the camera really represents in terms of a visitor today, because no one uses those, right? Everything is in your hand and on your cell phone. Marketing, much simpler. We had brochures, you put them in the brochure rack at the visitor centers, the welcome centers, radio, print, all very, very straightforward mediums. And the way visitors were traveling back then was also much more simplified. They maybe took one big vacation a year, and they could spend a year planning that trip. The trip might be 5 days, 7 days, it might be a road trip. Some people flew, for vacations, but for the most part, that was your big vacation. And then you might have a couple of weekend getaways here and there. But this is not the way people are looking at travel today. Obviously, the digital adoption has changed everything, not just in the planning funnel, but in the way people are interacting with the destination and with your businesses when they're on the ground. People are no longer looking just for those big, iconic destinations and attractions to visit. I think, growing up, people talked about, trips to the Grand Canyon, or you want to go see an ocean somewhere, or, if you had the funds, we're going to go to the Eiffel Tower, right? You're going to go see these big, well-known, iconic attractions. Now it's the opposite. People are very, very interested in getting off the beaten path and having experiences that they haven't had before. And yes, bucket list travel still exists, and people do still make those lists, and I want to see this place before I die. But more and more, we're seeing people want to have these really authentic experiences, and that's why I think it's a great time for destinations like Madison, who are really appealing to that kind of audience, who say, we've been to New York City, we've been to Chicago, we've checked all of those boxes, but now we want to really see Americana. We love that Main Street kind of experience. The booking window is much shorter. You no longer have people waiting a year from when they book a trip to when they take the trip. In many cases, people are making travel decisions within weeks of when they're going to take the trip for Puerto Rico. And obviously, there's only a couple of ways to get there. You're on a train, or you're on a plane, or you're on a boat. People are booking in less than 60 days. I mean, that's it's a much bigger investment than a lot of short distance travel, but still that booking window is pretty compressed for us compared to what it was 10 or 20 years ago. Sustainability, social inclusion, these were all words that we weren't talking about in tourism and travel 20 years ago. Hyper-localized support. Hopefully you all are seeing this in small businesses across Madison. Certainly we're seeing it in Puerto Rico, where people aren't coming to Puerto Rico to go into shopping malls. We have shopping malls, they're not coming to Puerto Rico to go to Starbucks. We have Starbucks, but people really want that local, authentic experience. They want to patronize local businesses. They want to take home souvenirs from local businesses. Hybrid meetings. This space, I just cannot get over this space. It is so, so beautiful. You guys are going to have an opportunity to grab more business in the meeting and Senate convention event space, which is what MICE stands for. You see that in my presentation. So those hybrid meetings are here to stay, where people are coming in person, but they're also going to still be online. The role of the resident has really become important, and I think Puerto Rico, maybe more than other destinations, you've got people who are suffering with rising home prices in their communities because of people coming in and buying more properties, and residents are starting to say we want to have a voice in what tourism looks like for our destination and how it impacts our destination for the future. And that's not just in Puerto Rico. We're seeing that as a global trend. The resident sentiment surveys and understanding what locals think about tourism is becoming super, super important. And if you're reading what's happening in the search space today, we all know that search as we know it is changing dramatically, and generative AI and the one-click search is going to be taking the world by storm. And so the opportunity to connect to visitors through Google, where you might have a shot at getting those visitors to click a link to your business, it's going away. So again, as marketers, we have to get much more savvy, we have to understand the space, and we have to get prepared for the future. And I just use this next slide to kind of say, and you can just click through that, Matthew, as we talk about what the tourist looks like today, and this is just a small, small fraction of what that planning phase looks like right now. Again, when people used to get a vacation guide and click through there and get excited and get inspired about what they were, where they were going to go, now they're looking at social media. They're looking on TikTok. We're seeing right now that we're getting more search inquiries through TikTok than through Google. And that trend is going to continue as younger audiences get less inclined to use Google and start using those social media channels like TikTok as their main search tool. Wikipedia and Yelp, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of those digital platforms in a few minutes. But the world is changing. It really has already changed, and we've got to figure out how we're going to adapt to these things to make sure that we, as DMOs, as tourism marketers, as tourism businesses, continue to stay relevant for folks. So I'm going to go through, I tried to get to 10, but when I really think about it, there were 8 areas that I wanted to talk about that were really important and that I think are driving the conversation in tourism and travel marketing today. And I want to start with research. And again, these are very fundamental types of areas that I think are important for destinations and tourism businesses to be aware of right now. Research doesn't have to be super expensive. It doesn't have to be primary, but understanding who your audience is and understanding who your market is so critical to how successful your programs are going to be and whether or not you're reaching the right audience. Do you know what your competitors are doing? You know, it's a very, very important question to ask yourself. We have more access to our competitors and what they're doing now more than ever because you can look on social media, you can see the types of promotions they're running, you can see the types of images they're using, you can go to their websites and see how they're branding themselves. I kind of pulled a few people while I've been visiting here the past week to say to them, what does Madison consider as its competitive set? And I heard things like Franklin, Bloomington, French Lick, Brown County. What are those folks doing in this space? Are they innovating? Are they using new marketing techniques? What does their creative look like? So understanding your competitors is really, really critical. Some of you already have tools you may not be taking advantage of. If you have a website, do you have Google Analytics plugged in? It's a really, really simple way to understand who's coming to your site. What other websites are they coming from? So what are those referral sites that are coming to your site? How much time are they spending there? What are the types of content they're ingesting when they're on your site? That's going to really help hone in for you who is interested in your destination and maybe what kind of content you should be building out more of. In Puerto Rico, we're kind of a new organization because the government handled tourism before legislation was passed that created our DMO. That was 6 years ago. But it was when we started understanding who our consumers were through primary research, that website data was the other key that helped us unlock who's visiting the destination. So once we got our website up and running, we started looking at Google Analytics, and we had, of course, a lot of content that was plugged in. We saw some really interesting things that we just didn't expect in terms of the content most people are interested in. For a Caribbean island, you expect people are interested in beaches, but people were going to web pages that were focused on food and gastronomy. They were going to web pages that were focused on history. These were just things that, again, gave us insights to say, I think we need to start focusing more on content in these sort of areas because we're seeing people spend a lot of time on those web pages. Same with, if you have an email database, if you have social pages, you also have analytics that are tied to those social media accounts. So try to use what you already have at your disposal. Your CPB may have research that they're using to make marketing decisions as well. Some of that's shareable, some of it may not be, but there are a lot of free or very affordable tools that are at your disposal to help you understand your visitor, who's coming, and what they're doing when they're interacting with your business. So research in Puerto Rico is really where we started. Go to the next slide. Yeah. When we started, there was no primary research in Puerto Rico. Research had never been done before to do all of those things I just mentioned in the previous slide. So when we started talking to consumers, it was one of the first steps that we took as a brand new destination marketing organization. We learned a lot about what they thought about Puerto Rico, perceptions that they had. Keep in mind, we opened the doors at Discover Puerto Rico in July of 2018, which was about 8 or 9 months after Hurricane Maria in September of 2017. So we expected that people were going to say, oh, the island is devastated, you can't visit the island. In fact, the perception of Puerto Rico was kind of neutral. People said, never really thought about Puerto Rico. We found a lot of people don't know that Puerto Rico doesn't require a passport. These were all insights that we started gaining as we were thinking about how we were going to evolve the brand for Puerto Rico. And one of the biggest takeaways for us is, as opposed to beaches, people were really interested in the culture of Puerto Rico. The people, the food, the history, the art, the architecture, and that is how we started to build our brand. We asked ourselves the question, what differentiates us from what we call the sea of sameness in the Caribbean, right? And you might look at some of your competitors and say, yeah, we all kind of have this in common, or we all kind of have that in common. Whether you're looking at it from the perspective of the city of Madison, or you're looking at it from the perspective of your own business, you have to ask yourself what differentiates you from your competitors. What really sets you apart? What is something that you can own? For us in Puerto Rico, that was culture. That the food, the history, the heritage of Puerto Rico is something that no other island in the Caribbean can claim. To tell you the truth, and this didn't last because politics, but in Indiana, when we were doing this process, when I was with the state of Indiana, what does Indiana own? We said it was racing. That was something that no other state could really take away from us. And at the time, we developed a brand positioning that was Indiana Restart Your Engines. We kind of had this dual entendre about, resting and relaxing, but also the racing piece. So thinking about what your business owns, what Madison can own, is really where the branding process starts. A lot of people think brands are logos. A brand is a tagline that you use. Branding really has nothing to do with that. That's an expression of your brand. But the brand is actually something that whether or not you know it, it already exists. Your consumers are already thinking a certain way about you. You need to harness that information, figure out how that translates into things like logos, into things like creative and campaigns, and craft that compelling brand story. I use Holiday World here because from my early days with Indiana, it was something that stood out to me as a brand that really understood owning something. And I'm sure you can all think about what is Holiday World and Splash and Safari own? Free drinks. And at the time it was free sunscreen. I'm not sure if they're still doing that. But that was something that no other theme park had done or has done since then. And they still really, really own that. And in that space, which by the way is a very, very crowded space, how can you stand apart? And it's a bold move because I'm sure it hurts the wrong one. But it was something that they said, we're going to own this, we're going to stick with it. To my last point about being consistent with your brand, and they now have market share of that space in Indiana, and probably I would say in several surrounding states as well. So if you take anything away from this slide, ownability, think about what you can own. This next slide really speaks to marketing planning. This doesn't have to be a 6-month long process and you hire consultants and you have a 100-page marketing plan. This can be 4 things that you write on a Post-it note and stick it on your computer screen. A marketing plan can be very, very simple. It's taking that research, it's taking that brand voice that you've established and coming up with some measurable goals. Something that's realistic, something that's attainable, something that's really relevant to what you're trying to do with your business. And I say time bound, you have to have a timeline. It can't just be something that's open-ended. So think about those SMART goals. You can't do everything, right? None of us can, even with big teams, even with big budgets, you cannot accomplish it all. Think about something that is reasonable for you and your business to accomplish over the next 6 months, over the next year, and really ingrain that, not just for you, but also for your teams and people who you're working with. I think, marketing plan does generally have to have a budget, something that you can stick within and again, measure yourself against at the end of that time frame, whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year. And then I think it's really, really important, and you're going to see the word optimize on a lot of these slides. Because of the space we're living in right now, with a lot of focus on digital marketing, we have a chance to look at our performance in real time and make adjustments as we go. Back in the day, when you printed a brochure, and for Branson, we spent $500,000 printing all those vacation guides. If there's a mistake, if a business closes, if something changes, guess what? It's going to wait till next year because we're not rerunning that. We live in a wonderful time now where we've got a lot of opportunity to look at our performance in real time and be able to adjust it and optimize. So you're going to see me talking a lot about that. On the next slide, we're going to talk about your online presence, and this is an area I wanted to sort of double click on a little bit because it's so important. It's really where all of the major brands in the tourism space are living right now. We know that more than 85% of travel planning is happening online. almost 90% of visitors to destinations are taking at least one, some of them two mobile devices with them when they're traveling. So this is a space that's really, really critical. And again, you can't accomplish it all overnight, but taking kind of small bites at the elephant over time will really net results, and they'll net measurable results for you. So if you have a website, it probably sounds pretty standard, marketing 101. If you have a website, though, it's got to be optimized for mobile. Having a website that's not optimized for mobile, that's not user-friendly for people to be able to access when they're in market, is just not very helpful. So think about that. If you've invested in content, if you've invested in website development, take the extra step to make sure that that's optimized for mobile. Optimize your presence across partner resources. This one should be a pretty simple one. At Discover Puerto Rico, we have a website and we give listings free to all of our tourism businesses. Most people don't take advantage of that. We have to go in ourselves and develop these business listings and put in their hours of operations and upload photos, and it's like, come on, this is free, you know. We're driving, I think now we're doing over 5 million visits a year to Discover Puerto Rico, so take advantage of that traffic. So make sure you're optimizing your business presence. I don't know today if visiting Anna's site is pay to play, they kind of go back and forth, but if you've got free opportunities to make sure your business is covered there, do it. If you've got opportunities on Main Street site or Visit Madison site, make sure you have those things up to date and you're changing them if there's changes to your business, because that's just table stakes. Valuable content. As business owners and as tourism marketers, we all have content that we want to push, and that's important to us, right? But think about what's important to your consumer. And again, if you've got the opportunity to look at Google Analytics or look at any of your data across your social media sites, you're going to get an idea of where people are spending the most of their time, and you can optimize your content to ensure that you're speaking to that. Because again, you might think, well, we're really interested in outdoor recreation. We want to talk to people about outdoor recreation. We want to talk to people about nature and things like that. But if people aren't coming to your site and engaging with content about that, that's not what you're about. You've got to look at what they're interested in, and not really just what we as businesses and destinations are interested in promoting. Email marketing. This is a workhorse for Discover Puerto Rico. And with third-party cookies going away, that first-party data is gold. So if you have the opportunity to get first-party data and someone is willing to give you their email address, treat it like they just wrote you a check, because that information is so hard to get, and it's going to continue to be harder and harder to get. So we are focusing on a lot of efforts, and it's a little bit counterintuitive because 10 years ago, we all went away from email marketing. Everybody was so excited about, digital marketing and the banner campaigns and all of the social media. But, tried and true email marketing can be very, very, very effective. You can get a lot of great input about the interests. What kind of information do they want to receive? Are they interested in LGBTQ plus content? Are they interested in nature? Are they interested in foodie content? And then you can actually serve them niche emails. It's a very low-cost option that will work very, very hard for you. Make sure you're optimizing those opportunities to get first-party data. CRM systems, if you use Toast, if you use Square, you've got access to a CRM. Make sure you're optimizing your data against those CRM systems. Those are customer relationship management systems for those of you who aren't using them. And then again, just tracking and optimizing. Make sure you're looking at that on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be daily. Maybe it's a weekly basis. But don't set it and forget it. That's for a lot of marketers, and I think sometimes business owners too. It's like, okay, we've checked that box. We've got this running. We've got a campaign set up, or we've got an email marketing that went out. Now we're good. You've got to continue to go in and make sure that you're monitoring those things and optimizing as you go. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about a program that we launched in Puerto Rico that we named La Idea. And IDEA stands for Island Digital Education Academy. This was something we started 2 years ago in Puerto Rico because as important as it is for Discover Puerto Rico and the DMO to have an incredible website presence, we are only as good as our partner information, right? So In Puerto Rico, we have, roughly 10,000 tourism businesses. Some of them are not doing much marketing at all. They don't understand how to access the places that they already own in the digital space. So what we wanted to do was bring sort of a training program directly to our businesses that would give them the tools one-on-one to help them improve their visibility across really important tourism platforms. Places like TripAdvisor, Google My Business Listings, Yelp. We looked at Google 360 images, Google Video, so that we could ensure that as many businesses as we could touch had their information updated, had updated images. Remember, we're talking about the DMO starting in 2018, 9 months after Hurricane Maria. All of the images that were being populated by people who lived in Puerto Rico, by the media, social media, all of that's living in Google. So even a year after the hurricane has passed, when people search, travel to Puerto Rico, what's coming up? Pictures of trees down, pictures of electric wires down, flooding. That's not at all what the destination looked like. But what is living out there in the digital space is going to get found by consumers if you, as business owners, are controlling those things. And the DMOs have to get involved too. So that's what this program is really about, is bringing those tools to our businesses so that they could improve their visibility, their discoverability, and really the quality of their listings across all of these benefits. So I already spoke to this. Obviously, it's positive economic impact. The more kind of a mass quantity we can get of all of these businesses to update their listings, improve and maximize, I used to say it's in the simplest form, rising tide lifts all ships, right? So if all of the businesses are getting involved, and in Puerto Rico, we were able to impact 6,000 tourism businesses who came to the party and said, help us. We want our Yelp homepage to be up to date. We want our Google My Business page to be up to date. And so we help them do that. How businesses look is an important part of how a destination looks. So again, the DMO, all the money we put into discoverpuertorico.com, and all the money we put into paid media is only as good as the business listings and the businesses themselves look when consumers come to our website or they come to your front doors. Obviously, better business profiles are going to drive a lot better engagement. So on this next slide, again, no new news here, but 90% of travelers use Google at some point in their trip planning process. Shouldn't be a surprise to you. It's going to be changing with AI, but right now it is still the main source that people are initially going to get inspiration, to get information about where they're considering. On the next slide, and luckily no one from Branson is here, but I just wanted to use an example. When we started doing this process and looking at our destination, this was a listing that one of our agencies pulled from where I previously worked, which was Branson. This is just an example of incomplete information that was on a Google My Business listing for this business, which was, White River Landing. This is a place, by the way, where there's a beautiful, it's called the Showboat Branson Bell. It's a beautiful attraction on Table Rock Lake in Branson. And they've got like a 4.5-star rating. So it's not a crappy place to go. People like this place. But they had no idea that this is how they're showing. I hope they don't know. I hadn't just not do anything. But I'm guessing they don't know that they can claim this listing, they can make it their own, they can add business hours, they can take down these photos that are being user-generated and added to Google My Business and replace them with nice brand photos. On the other hand, on the next slide, you'll see what we've been working on with our attractions across Puerto Rico is updating these profiles. And again, this is pretty simple stuff to do, and it doesn't cost you anything. Up-to-date profiles are almost 3 times more likely to consider to be reputable businesses for people to visit. They're 70% more likely to attract location visits, so to get people through those doors, and 50% more likely to lead to a purchase. If those are compelling numbers, I don't have anything else to share. It's going to be more compelling than because this is where visitors are going. This is how they're getting their information. And not only is it critical that you update this information, that then when visitors come to your business, they're seeing that replicated. So if Google My Business says that your hours are 9 to 5 and someone comes to your business at 3:30 and it's closed, they're probably not coming back to your business because they're not going to feel that you're a credible source and that your information is correct. Maybe the business closed, maybe they don't open anymore on this day. So you really got to make sure that once you put that information out there, unless you're changing it on an ongoing basis, you really got to make sure that the information you put in there matches the service that you have. Another really important platform, which again, the table stakes, I'm sure you all know this, TripAdvisor. And this was another area that we trained a lot of our local businesses on. What drives people to engage more with your listings on TripAdvisor? Obviously photos, and good photos are important. The number of reviews you have. And I visited lots and lots of businesses in Madison, and there were people who, you're encouraging people to go to TripAdvisor and leave a review. That's great. The more reviews you have, the more that's going to increase your visibility across the TripAdvisor algorithm. Do you respond to reviews, good or bad? But when management responds to those reviews, that's also pushing up their visibility in terms of engagement in the algorithm. And then the number of reviews you've had in the past year. So, getting a lot of reviews is great, but what's really important is you kind of keep them coming in because the algorithm favors those who have a lot of reviews within that 12-month period. So just a few quick things on maximizing your exposure across these channels. And again, this would be a great workshop to get into a lot of nuts and bolts to be able to train businesses one-on-one if you don't have a lot of access to this information. Claim your business listing. That's the easiest thing you can do walking out of here. Update your information. If you claimed it, you need to update your information. Check that out. All the relevant attributes. There's a lot of check marks that you can add about what specifically your business offers. Do that. Great pictures. And then after you get it up, engage. People are going to start leaving reviews if they're not already on your Google My Business listings. Engage with them. Even if it's as simple as, thanks for your review. Glad you like this day. Hope you visit again. Super, super simple stuff that's going to increase your visibility in Google's algorithm. Social media marketing continues to be a really, really important space. As a DMO, what we struggle with is where do we need to be because there are so many platforms and they're adding new ones all the time. I think that the best thing to do here is, first of all, if you have social media channels, look at what's performing well and do a quick audit. Where are you seeing the most engagement? Your visitor. Is it, a more mature audience? They're probably on Facebook. Is it more millennial Gen X? They're probably on Instagram. Is it younger than Gen X? Guess what? It's probably TikTok. Pinterest still does really, really well for Discover Puerto Rico. So some people, that may have dribbled off the court. For us, we still see a lot of strong engagement across Pinterest. So see what is working for you right now if you're on social media. If you're not on social media at all, try to audit as much as you can who's coming to your business, understand their profile and who they are, and try to find a social platform that's going to match. Social media is an animal. You have to keep feeding it. You have to keep feeding it. So once you get on, buckle up because you're going to have to stay on, and for it to be effective, you're going to have to stay engaged with this audience. So don't overcommit. If you can only manage one social media platform and do it really, really, really well, do that. See how it goes for a year or 18 months, and then maybe come back and say, okay, I think we're ready to check out this TikTok. In the meantime, go ahead and claim your handles on those social media channels if you haven't already. Maybe today you're saying, no, we're not ready to get on TikTok, but see if your business's handle is available so you can go ahead and lock that in. Someday you might want to be on it, so if you haven't, again, it's kind of table stakes. But if you haven't done that, I would take a look at it. Can't do it all. Be realistic. Content strategy is really important. What can you do and do well? Is it posts? Is it text? Is it photos? Do you have maybe someone who's younger who loves to do content on TikTok and they're really good at TikTok videos? Figure out what you can do and do well and then stick with that. Content themes are great. All of these weird, day of, today's National Pina Colada Day, or today is this day, or today's National Day birthday for your sister or whatever. Look at those. That's a really easy thing to jump on and create content around. Every day there's like 4 or 5 national blah 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 days. So use that to if you don't have any other ideas or promotions or things like that going on, there's always something to talk about. Stick with your brand voice. Paid media is a pretty affordable way, and if you've done any testing on Facebook or on Instagram, you really can get significant engagement across not across the whole platform, but across a very targeted audience. If you're wanting to promote something very simple, it's Girls Weekend, you're running a special, you're running a promotion, it's buy one get one free. You can really hyper target on social media for a pretty affordable price. It might cost you $10 to run a Facebook campaign, right? So be thinking about that as a quick and sort of short-term lever to pull if you've got a specific piece of very actionable content in mind. Measure optimize. The next space I want to talk to is, and we're on 6, and I think, how are we on time? Good? Okay. Is inclusion and belonging. A year ago it was diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't know what it's going to be in a year from now, but right now it's called inclusion and belonging. And this is a really, really important area. If you're not thinking about this for the community, you're not thinking about this for the business that you have, you're leaving a lot on the table. People ask a lot when I've spoken other places, what's inclusion and belonging mean? What's the difference between inclusion and belonging? Inclusion is really the open door. It's the invitation. It's saying, we're welcoming. Belonging is the feeling of actually being valued and that you're a part of the team. The way we explain it internally is inclusion is being invited to the party, and belonging is being asked to dance, right? So inclusion says, hey, we're open, but really belonging is making people feel very, very welcome and that they are, it can be a part of your business. A lot of people think when we talk about inclusion and belonging, we're talking about Black travelers, we're talking about Asian American travelers, we're talking about LGBTQ plus travelers. This topic, inclusion and belonging, ranges so much wider than that. It includes race, yes. It includes physical ability, yes. Gender, sexual orientation, age, religion, differently able people, socioeconomic status. The list goes on and on and on. We can't think of all of this, and on a day-to-day basis. What I would really recommend to people as you're thinking about your own business and how you can be cognizant about inclusion and belonging, is kind of start with a simple statement, a simple mission statement. Like, what do you believe in terms of your business and how welcoming and open you want to be to people? And I think this is another area where rising tide lifts all ships. Puerto Rico was just named the top LGBTQ plus destination in the entire Caribbean, and we hosted International Gay Lesbian Travel Association in October, which is the first time Puerto Rico has ever hosted that. We didn't get to that place because one day we woke up and said, we're going to be friendly to people who are LGBTQ plus. That was a 5-year strategy that started when the DMO opened, and we did research and we tried to understand who this market is and do we have the type of product that is going to be fit for them? And the answer was absolutely yes. And so when you go to this next slide, and you might notice somebody who you know in some of that creative, because Matt and Dan came to Puerto Rico and were free talent for us about 6 years ago. But these are stats that help you understand the business case for inclusion and belonging. Because inclusion and inclusivity and diversity and equity, those aren't just how do you feel about inclusion and belonging. It's really about a business case. Because if you think I can walk into my CEO's office or into my board room and say, hey, we're going to do an LGBTQ plus campaign, that ain't happening. We've got to make a case for people to really understand why this is important to the business of tourism in Puerto Rico. I think one of the most compelling stats, can you go back? That people don't often understand is that almost a third of the Gen Z population identify as something other than mainstream. A third of the Gen Z population. So think about that in the scope of how the younger audiences and the younger demographics are coming up and identifying very, very differently than just straight or gay, right? So this is an entirely new market that we've got to be thoughtful about, because if we're not, we're leaving money on the table. Millennial Gen Z, more passionate than any other generation about inclusivity, about their own and about others. All of our LGBTQ plus markets over-index for the length of stay, for the amount of money that they're spending in the destination, and for how much time they have to take vacation. So again, another important piece when you're thinking about the business case around inclusion and belonging. And then the next one is, I think this is probably the next focus area that we're seeing become kind of hotly discussed in a lot of DMOs, and that's accessibility. It's a frustrating one for us in Puerto Rico because the government handles product. So the Discover Puerto Rico doesn't work with economic development folks, hotel developers, et cetera. That all falls under the government, and accessibility does as well. So we don't have the tools to be able to require businesses to do X, Y, Z above what they're required to do federally, nor do we have the ability to enforce it. So all we can do is try to understand the market and try to direct visitors to where we know they do have accessible facilities. 13% of the U.S. population differently able, non-institutionalized. That's a big number. And as the boomers continue to age, you're going to see that number continue to grow. Is your business prepared for that? Again, I mentioned earlier, accessibility also extends beyond wheelchair users. I think in our minds, we think accessibility, we think wheelchair ramps and things like that. That is part of it. But it also includes people who are hearing impaired and vision impaired and neurodivergence, cognitive, walking, self-care. All of those things are super plugged into this overall accessibility discussion. And if your business isn't ready for it, you're going to get called out, because people are getting more and more, this is becoming more of a critical conversation, and they're taking it to social media. In Puerto Rico, again, it's really frustrating because we hear from visitors saying we couldn't get down the sidewalk in San Juan, it's cobblestones. And it's like, gosh, is our destination thinking about this? The same with beaches. If you've been to a beach in Miami, you see that they have sort of the plastic ramps that roll out to the ocean for wheelchairs to be able to be on the sand. We don't have that except on a couple of beaches in Puerto Rico. So it's a frustrating thing as a destination to know we're not that accessible as other destinations that are in our comp set. But be thinking about what can you do on it, from a simple, not boil the ocean, but simple steps to enhance welcomeness, easy parking and entrance, lighting is really, really important, wheelchair accessible restrooms. And I think that the last one is probably the most important. Do you have an aware and responsive staff? Because sometimes if your business isn't physically prepared, right? So like maybe you don't have a wheelchair ramp, or maybe you don't have wheelchair accessible restrooms, but your employees are, we're really sorry, how can we help you? Let me grab the door. That goes a long way, right? And so that person may leave your business and maybe they couldn't have come inside, but they're at least not feeling like you're jerks and going out and posting a bunch of stuff on social media. So that's where training comes in, and just helping your staff and people who you work with on a day-to-day basis understand this. And we're winding down here, but I wanted to touch on partnerships and collaborations. I think this is another one that's sort of low-hanging fruit. When you're looking around Madison, there's a lot that come to my mind, and I know Matthew does a lot of partnerships locally. Who are partners that are like-minded, who share similar values to you, maybe share a similar audience? Is there something that another person or another business offers that you don't, and they can sort of help fill a gap for you? I say first best only when I think about partnerships and collaborations for Discover Puerto Rico. I want to do something that no one else has done before. I want to do something that we can be the best at, or something we can really own. So partnerships has been a really, really cool way for us to express that first best only. Not just looking around and saying, oh, this person's doing a buy one, get one, or everybody's doing this promotion for the holidays. What can you do that's going to be really unique and stand out to consumers? Is it scalable? So you don't have to, again, you don't have to come out of the gate with your first partnership partnership or promotion, and have it be something that is going to be super long-term or unreachable. It can be something that's very scalable. Make sure you understand if there's benefit for you, great, but there's got to be a benefit for the other person as well. Co-branding, cross-promotion, and then there's a lot of natural collaborations that are going on. I saw, I think, the Indiana State today was, or not today, I think I sent you a post this weekend, was promoting state parks, and they were featuring Clifton. I thought, how could the city reach out to DNR or do a partnership? There's a lot of natural partnerships that already exist, that people are doing interesting things that you would be a great fit to come alongside them. So think about some of those natural collaborations that might make sense. And then I have to, I couldn't leave essentials without speaking to crisis planning. You've all heard it's not if, it's when, and I can tell you from being in Puerto Rico for 6 years, we've had more than our fair share of crisis, from hurricanes to earthquakes, governors getting ousted all the way up to the pandemic, which we experienced globally, but it's going to happen. I know a tornado was here in Madison a couple of months ago. There's different scales, right, of crisis, but how is your business prepared for this? Start by understanding what kind of crisis plan exists at the city and state level and see what you can adapt for your business, because likely, now Puerto Rico one didn't exist before, believe it or not, so we were starting from scratch. But if the city and the state have the crisis plans specific to tourism, you should extract what you can that's relevant to your business and scale that. If there isn't one, then you're going to be starting more and more so from scratch to understand what could potentially happen in the market. In Puerto Rico, we have a crisis plan for 25 scenarios. Believe it or not, we had one for airborne contagion. So when COVID hit, we were fairly well prepared to hit the ground running because we had experienced Zika in 2015 and 2016. So we were ready for the airborne contagion. We have scenarios for active shooters. It's happening more and more in tourism destinations and involving tourists. We have scenarios, of course, for earthquakes, for hurricanes, for bomb threats, for shark bites, which you don't have to worry about. But think about what you should be worried about. What can happen in this market? Can you develop a scenario to make sure that you and your employees are prepared for that? Understand who's doing what and the responsibilities of each person in your business. Operational continuity, it's a really, really simple thing to understand. Okay, what do we do in a situation where electric is shut down across Madison for X number of days? How do you continue operations? Do you continue operations? Safety and security procedures for your staff. Again, I hate to keep saying it's not if, it's when, but it really is true, and I've seen it across the board with other DLO friends. They were not prepared, whether it was an earthquake or a crisis or a wildfire that hit their communities. They didn't have a plan in place, and people were scrambling. And the last thing you want to do is be trying to figure out this information when you're in the midst of it. So I just can't speak enough to crisis planning. Obviously, again, we've seen our fair share in Puerto Rico, so we've learned a lot from this. And if anyone is interested in specifics, I'm happy to share some of our plans. So just to wind it up, the last slide is more of a checklist, just talking about what we discussed today, the research, the brand building, the marketing plan. If you notice through the presentation, they all kind of build on each other. Hate to end on crisis, but you gotta be prepared. And all of these things together, again, not at the same time all at once, but all of these things together are really going to help your business thrive and ultimately help the city and the city thrive. The last slide is just a quick, if you're interested in connecting with me, that's like the biggest QR code I've ever seen. I didn't realize it was going to be on the screen. Anyways, if you want to connect with me and any of these topics are of interest to you or you'd like additional information, I'm happy to share it. Again, I've had lots of different experience from working at a city, working at a state, and now working at a territory. So I've been able to really hone some of these areas for success in our market. So with that, I think I'm turning things over to Alicia to take us into the next session.
questions and kind of, I guess, think about the questions you have while we're working on this panel, but also you'll be able to ask the direct ones here in just a few moments, but the networking time you'll be able to have some more in-depth conversations with some of these folks. So at this time, I just wanted to introduce Alicia Christocouli. She is a current board member with Madison Main Street, and she's going to be kind of helping up here with the panel. So if you're a part of the panel, you all want to start making your way up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you again, Leah. That was really just terrific. I've been looking forward to this workshop on tourism marketing because my husband and I moved to Madison 11 years ago, but we first came here about 15 years ago as tourists. And you know what happens when you keep coming back to a place as a tourist and it starts to grow on you. How many of you in this room had that experience, first coming here as a tourist? Anybody else? Yeah. Several of you have opened businesses here, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Thanks to our responders today, we thought we would get a cross-section of people who work in some area of tourism here in Madison to respond to the content, wonderful content that we just heard from Leah, and then also to help as responders to questions from the audience. So we have Amy Forrester. Most of these people, I'm sure, are people that you know. Amy Forrester, who is our Executive Tourism Director of Visit Madison. Mayor Bob Courtney, and Mayor, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Sarah Preisel is also with Visit Madison, and she is the Executive Marketing Officer there. Tyler Mingione is the owner of Pearl Plate, one of our wonderful Main Street businesses, and Tyler had just moved to Little Pearl Nation downtown, so if you've ever been to your place, you need to check that out. And then finally, Victoria Perry, who is the General Manager here at the Continental Fairfield Hotel. So you can see this is a wide range of experience in marketing in different areas. And so I think I'd like to kick it off with a question for all of you, and I'll just hand the mic to Andrew, pass it on down. But as you listen to Leah, did you get any key takeaway that was very important in your work? What was probably the most important takeaway that you heard from her presentation?
My goodness, I've got like 3 pages of notes. So where do I start? No, I think it's important for us to look at all the different ways that we need to market and get the marketing funnel. As she was talking about, a lot of times we hear from people that same question about, well, how are you going to get people into my business? And from a Visit Madison standpoint, yeah, we want to try and do that, but we've got to try and get them to the destination first. And so that was, I think, a really important part that stuck out to me. And we want to try and get them here and then get them into the business as well.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. And I just want to mention, first of all, your presentation was excellent. And I was taking a picture of that next to last slide that had all the 8 or 10 key talking points in it that you went over. And right before the picture snap, the QR code came up. And it immediately took me to your site. So it does work from any distance in this room. And it is a fabulous facility. I mean, they had spared no expense in bringing here in Madison, Indiana. You are in downtown Madison, Indiana. And I want to also say that I think that our businesses, our tourism groups, our local and state government, we're all working really, really well together. And of the 8 or 10 things that you mentioned on that, I think we're already pretty far along in doing those. And so the takeaway for me here today is keep doing what we're doing. The public-private partnerships and collaborations are key to success. And Andrew is correct that building a destination where people want to come is a great place to looking for everybody.
Thank you. I concur on everything you guys are saying so far. I think it was so critical that everybody heard your message today here in our community. It really validates everything that we do on a daily basis or strive to do on a daily basis. So everything you see out there, we're doing. And so it's so exciting to see this from this level. So that was a takeaway, but also just that engaging in the inclusivity and storytelling and getting that across. So.
Hi, you did an excellent job. I think my biggest takeaway as the store owner downtown is just the idea of what can you own. And I think Madison has a story to tell, and I think we do a pretty good job of telling that. But even as a store owner, like what is my voice? It should kind of, be one and the same at the same time, but also like your holiday world example was a huge eye opener for me. And what can you actually own? So trying to digest that and figure out what that means for me as a business owner.
Yes, sorry. I'm trying to control volume here. You're already beneath things today. I apologize. Thank you, Leah, for being here. It was a fantastic presentation. You did a great debut for our screen, so we're happy to have that. I think one of my biggest key takeaways was you mentioned just understanding your audience. And I think you can't be all things to all people. And if you try to do that, then you kind of end up being nothing to anyone. So just really honing in on who your market is and putting your time and energy into reaching those people and reaching them well.
Victoria, I'll let you just keep the mic down, and I'll try to talk about that way you want to. Questions from the audience? For Leah, or any of the respondents? Yes.
I'm from Mystic Greensburg, and my question is, what is the best way to recognize and define your target audience, whether that's as a tourism entity or a business?
Did everybody hear the question? Best way to recognize your target audience, whether you're a business or whether you're a community destination or guest.
Thank you. So you may have to start out with some of those insights that I talked about at the beginning around Google Analytics that's going to help you understand the age range. You're going to look at those IP addresses. You're going to see where your visitors are coming from. That's very kind of top of the funnel. What we finally were able to institute about 3 years ago, it took a long time because we had to work with businesses to get their permission, was doing a visitor profile study. So that's what I would recommend from a city CDB standpoint, because you're probably going to have a little bit, more of a budget than the local businesses. What we do is a mix of in-person and online surveys. So we're doing intercept surveys in market. And in Puerto Rico, we have people taking those surveys at 19 different locations around the island and at the airport. So that gives us a really good sample. We're asking people not only, age and demographic kind of information, but we're asking behavioral targeting information. And then we're also asking them what motivated you to plan your trip to Puerto Rico, which is some of the most important information that we can have. And also, weather is obviously number one, but number two and number three were super interesting for us, which again, I talked about them being related to culture. So you're getting that information about what motivated them to take the trip. And then depending on if you're catching them coming or going, you can ask them about their trip. How much money did you spend on the trip? Where did you stay? Did you stay in a short-term rental or did you stay in a hotel? So all of that information, and we do those quarterly. So, at different intervals because, Puerto Rico has less seasonality than some destinations because the weather's great year-round. But nonetheless, there are, high season and low season. And so we want to understand, what does that visitor look like in the summer versus the visitor who's coming during peak season in the winter? What does that customer look like during spring break? So again, that's that level of study is usually not available for businesses to do. Although I have a board member who literally just asks people questions while they're sitting at the counter at his restaurant, say, where did you hear about Puerto Rico? You can do that. I mean, that's a simple thing that you can ask somebody to fill out 3 questions when they're at your counter if you're a business. But from a destination standpoint, a visitor profile study is going to be the richest information that you can get, not only about what they did on their trip and who they are, but what motivated them to come. Do you have any?
A follow-up question to add to that. We've talked about Google a lot today. And with the GA4 switchover last July, and that with the premise of that being completely around privacy, and the fact that going forward, you have to have a Gmail account, and you have to get permission. So that pool is going to be smaller and smaller and smaller of gathering those demographics and those behaviors and all of that. And that's making our jobs even harder. So anyway, how have you guys adjusted to that so far?
So the biggest thing I can emphasize again on this one is first-party data. Where can you get first-party data information? For us, the best has been lead generation for email marketing. So the first thing you do when you come to discoverpuertorico.com is you're getting hit with, can you sign up for an email blast? That is the first and foremost. Again, it's kind of down and dirty, but it's the easiest way to get information from people from a first-party standpoint. We do a lot of paid media that also helps to lead generation. It's like we're in a time warp, because that was the kind of stuff we did when we were trying to get rid of vacation. We had 300,000 vacation guides. We had to get all of these leads, and then everybody, that went to the wayside because we were doing all of this online targeting. And now that that's being taken away from us, we're having to come full circle and really focus on that first party data. So can't emphasize enough, if you have access to people, you're at a festival, give them a QR code where they can, sign up for an email blast or sign up for 10% off. You're collecting all that information, they're opting in, and you're going to get to keep that and remarket to them. So I think the cookie piece has been hard for all of us, but the first party data is what's going to get us through.
I have a question, let's keep going. So, do you have an easy time getting people to fill out these surveys, or are there any ways that you try to incentivize people to fill these out?
So we don't incentivize people on this. A lot of times the easiest way to do it is to capture them when they're in some kind of downtime. So the airport is the best for us. But when someone's in a shop and they're kind of active, it's difficult to do that. When we're trying to push for something, so for instance, when we had earthquakes at the beginning of 2020, and we were trying to get some information about who was visiting at that time and what areas of the island they were going to. We might do an incentive if we really need to get it quickly so that we can make marketing decisions based on what's happening in real time. But in terms of sort of the ongoing visitor profile study, we don't offer anything. In Branson, we have been doing a visitor profile study for 17 years. So think of how rich that information is about the visitor who's coming to Branson. We knew everything about those folks. Were they a veteran? Were they coming on a group tour? How long were they staying? Did they have kids? How old were their kids? I think the survey, the report was like 15 pages every month. We're getting that information, and that's going to help you get so much smarter about them. No, we have a company that does that, yeah.
I'll add in here that just for especially the Madison people in the room, that's one of the goals on our strategic plan for the next 3 or 4 years is to do the visitor profile, because as far as I can tell in the files that I have, we haven't done a comprehensive visitor profile since like 1994. Think about how much the world has changed since 1994. Think about how much it's changed in 5 years. So I found that study and I went, oh my gosh, we don't know who our visitors are. We have a good guess, and we see the responses on Facebook. That's one of our most active social media channels. Demographics from there. We have awesome email marketing. We get some of that, but we need that data. So that's one of the first things on our strategic plan that just got approved. So I want all the Madison people to know that that's something that I heard today. And I was like, oh, good. We're on the right track because we need this information.
I just want to add too that the data part of it is really critical. So when we started restructuring how the whole tourism apparatus worked here in the county, we enlisted with Placer AI. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Placer AI. And that was a really good start to compiling some data. We're always pitching our community. We're always competing with other communities, whether it's investment or programming or festivals and those kinds of things. And so we are able to establish points of interest and do economic impact analysis and identify who's coming here, where they're coming from, what their educational level is, what their income level is, how large is their household size, where they went before, where they went after. So there are some pretty sophisticated methods out there. We're all sharing that. and it's been invaluable. It's probably not as complete as a one-on-one visitor survey, but it does give us some analysis to really start targeting our marketing and really working for the biggest impact.
I'm not from Madison, I have a small business upriver. I have a question. So there's a lot of talk about how Puerto Rico is gathering this information and how you're using the mobile location data and your DMO is gathering that. How are you getting, what information you're getting, how are you getting that out to the small businesses so they can utilize that? And you've got the person in the funnel, you've moved them down this far, but how do we access information like that from your type of organization so we can utilize it, everybody rowing in the same direction kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and Placer AI is great, and we use a similar tool called Near. We used to use Arrivalist, but it's foot traffic data, so it's not only sharing all the information, gathering all the information that the mayor shared, but we're also getting sort of how they're moving around the destination. Are they staying downtown? Are they going downtown and out to Clifton? You kind of get a sense of how they're moving around the destination, which is awesome. So there's a couple of ways, it's a really good question, there's a couple of ways we work to get our data, which we invest a lot in research. Destinations International, which is kind of the mothership for destination marketing organizations, recommends about 10% of your budget every year should be put into research, and we do that at Discover Puerto Rico. There's two main ways that we provide the information. One is on a dashboard, so we actually have a live dashboard. We use a company called Tourism Economics. They developed this dashboard for us, and it has thousands and thousands of inputs because we're doing things like visitor profile data, but we're also doing brand health research. We're doing research. We do specific research around our short-term rentals. We do research for LGBTQ+. We do research for Black travelers. I mean, we have tons and tons of data that all gets fed into our platform that is accessible from our industry. There are different levels, so like our board, for instance, has access to a lot more levels than, say, the regular industry member does, but we break that down in that dashboard. The other way is just simply giving people the studies. We really thrive on transparency. Obviously Puerto Rico has sometimes had issues with that from a government standpoint. So as a not-for-profit standalone DMO, we're super transparent. We share everything. So those studies are uploaded to what we call our industry portal. We have a website specifically for our industry. If you ever want to check it out and see what we put there, it's discoverpuertorico.com/industry. We actually just redesigned that. We upload our studies there. You have to request it's not all open because we don't want, we consider a lot of the information we put there competitively sensitive, so we don't want Aruba and Jamaica to have access to it. But if you're one of our industry members, you have to log in and get an account. And then we upload things like RFPs, we upload sales leads, we upload all of our research studies there. We have a photo shelter account, which is a digital asset management account, so all of our footage, all of our images, access to that comes from our industry portal, so our industry can use those assets. So we just give them the reports, and I think different businesses are going to use that information differently. Some might use it in strategic planning, some might use it when they're thinking about media buys. Some of it may just be interesting to you to see what kind of people are coming to the destination and what kind of things they're doing.
Thank you. Question back to you. So we capture virtually every email address from virtually every one of our customers. We have been reluctant to use those out of concern that we would be flagged as spam email. How much of a concern is that, and how do we avoid that?
So it's a huge concern if you're not adhering to CAN-SPAM laws. So there are requirements that when someone opts in for your information, you have to give them boxes to say, yes, I'm opting in to receive future information from you, or no, I'm not opting in to receive information from you. So as long as you're adhering to that and they have checked the box that says, yes, I'm going to receive future information, you're good to go. Yeah, there's all kinds of consultancies and agencies that could do, kind of a scrub for you and make sure that you are compliant. If you're not compliant, they will fine you. It's a very, very, it's a very strict regulation, and they're taking privacy more seriously than ever. So it is important that you're adhering to that. If you haven't asked them to opt in, and I'm not an attorney, so take this for what it is, but what I understand from our team is if they haven't opted in, you can still use the email list. You can send them an email blast and say, we have your email address, do you want to receive future information? So you can send them an email to ask them to opt in. And then there's other things that are important, like when you send the email blast at the footer, you always have to give them an option to opt out. So there's some of those things that are they're pretty basic, but you do want to make sure you're checking those boxes before you utilize the list.
Other questions? Tim?
Thanks, Bob, for commenting on the employee. Thank you, because I attended a small workshop several months back where normally I was there, we were there, the local economic development, and I'm told very specific visitors to the area that they were using to help make decisions about not just tourism, but what businesses we might be able to move to our area. And I found that information extremely valuable. And so my question is, how do we get what is being collected by our tourism, by our city, by our chamber, by our nation, by our collective organizations to the businesses? Because I'm able to go to those meetings some of the time. Some of the time, even get some of the staff, but I know other businesses are saying, will you send me the link and tell me what they said? Is there a way that we could possibly, maybe Puerto Rico has something where, when you guys collect all your data, how do you get it out to the individual businesses? Because I know I missed a lot of data and information that we hear.
So one thing that's really important, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, we can't hear back here.
Okay.
Without the questions being like reiterated. Can you
Sure,
repeat the
yeah.
question
So she's asking a kind of a similar question related to Placer AI and how that can get out to small businesses. One thing that's important, and I can't speak for what the city is doing, is most of these research and data companies do require you to buy licenses if you're going to share it outside of your organization. So obviously it's cheaper if we just want Discover Puerto Rico to be able to access it. We buy the enhanced access and licenses so that we can share it. So not everybody it's not a given. Some reports like Smith Travel Research, for instance, that is a hotel data company, they're very, very closed off when it comes to how you can share that information, and there's legal reasons you can't share it. So I don't want to speak for what the city has or doesn't have access to, but in terms of just logistics, they can email to you, they can put up a dashboard, and I'll let
We could actually ask for local tourism to help fund the extra expense associated with sharing, right? And I think our businesses can get behind that.
Jefferson County and the city of Madison are collaborating on the cost of the licenses, and we've been partnering with VMI on the sharing of information. We're using it for a lot of similar things, but also very different specific goals and objectives. At the city level, many times it's for capital attraction. So if we have a specific area we're trying to target, how do we sell Madison and bring that investment here, whether it be retail, housing, restaurants, and other things. And then we also have the capability of establishing points of interest. And if you want to know if you're interested or considering opening a restaurant or a business here, what does the traffic pattern look like and who's coming there? We are sharing that information with BMI, and I know that they are able to establish reports where maybe you can leverage.
Yeah, I think one of the ways we continue to put together reports monthly that I send to my board and then go to JCPT, some of that, again, because of what we've agreed to with the company, we can't just send out reports willy-nilly, but it's something that, if you want to call and say, hey, Andrew, I've got a question, can you take a look at what we're doing on weekends or something? Something where I probably can't print you the report and send it to you without violating that agreement that we've got with the company. But I can take a look and give you a general idea of what we're seeing and some trends. And we can talk more trends with those, rather than, handing out reports here and there. We want to be very cognizant of we're doing things right, so we don't lose the ability to access the data. But if a business says, hey, I need to know, what's the 3 biggest weekends in Madison? That's something I've tried to report on at JCPT and at BMI. I can say, it is Regatta weekend, it's Chautauqua weekend, and it's Memorial Day weekend. Those are things that I'm not violating any kind of an agreement with Placer to go ahead and give those summaries. But I think there probably are some ways that we might look at doing a dashboard. Maybe there's data that we can extract. We also get the STAR report that shows our innkeepers' tax collections. And again, that's something where I can't share the reports, but I can aggregate some of the data, put it into my own words and summary and report, and kind of share that in a dashboard. So I think there are, we're doing a little bit of that now, but we're still early in utilizing this, and I think there's some ways that we can maybe even do that.
I just wanted to add to a good example of that was last year, Madison Main Street worked with Visit Madison and the City of Madison to look at data for a restaurant roundtable. And we took data that we had collected between our organizations, and then we used that even to talk with a new restaurant or a Chop House, for example, at that time was literally having their closing date on the day that we had that workshop. And then even after that, we had a very specific meeting with people, again, to further digest that data. And that was where we talked with restaurant owners and we said, how much of this data is actually reflected in your actual customers? And so we talked with them about those boots on the ground versus those numbers. And it was a really great conversation. A lot of them came up with good ideas. So again, just talking about opportunities to share that, that's something that I like to take pride in with Madison Main Street is we try and interpret as much as we can and provide it to anyone who asks for that information as much as possible. But just wanted to throw that out there that that's a good example of that kind of collaboration and the work that you guys are doing too.
Other questions? Yes.
I have a question about Google and AI. I know Google's planning to recap everywhere on the website by providing their own information so that they don't have to drag people to the website. And so, as far as as a new business, if I wanted to present myself online, which is pretty much the only media I have, do you have any recommendations going forward on how to do that?
No, not really. We're literally finding out about, the one-click generative AI search. I mean, it's happening right now. And there's articles posted just this week. And we're talking to our agencies about what that looks like, because the DMO website first and foremost, it's not the place that people go most often when they're looking at trip planning. When across all the DMOs I've worked for, about 30% of visitors go to the DMO website when they're planning the trip. They are going to TripAdvisor, they're going to Yelp, they're going to Google. So from a DMO website standpoint, that's not kind of our main focus right now in terms of how do we sort of adapt the website for AI. We're testing a few things at the moment, but as it relates to search and Google and what we're going to do, there's really not a recommendation at this point. At least our agencies aren't putting something forward. I think the more that you can continue to gather first-party data and not rely, Instagram could shut down tomorrow. I mean, if you are putting all of your eggs in that basket and you're not collecting information about your visitors from anywhere else, it's the same with AI. If AI starts to suck all of the traction from the Googles and the Bings of the world and they're not coming to our website anymore, do we have enough information to be able to connect with them outside of those platforms to keep them interested in Puerto Rico? Are we going to go back to vacation guides? So I think the more information you can collect that is first party and that you have access to with or without any of these platforms above and beyond what's happening with AI, those are the people who are going to be, I think, set up most for success.
When I asked the question earlier about takeaways, one of my big takeaways from her presentation was that academy that she talked about where they train businesses on how to look at their Google Analytics, how to look at And in the interest of planning future workshops, I'd love to just see a show of hands if people think that would be helpful locally to do. Okay. Sharing that. Also, Leah, for your presentation this year, so those of you who have been taking pictures and notes, you can, if you're on the email list back there, you can get a copy of this presentation. And also, if you don't mind, we'd love to see copies of the surveys that you talked about, which you just to have that in our toolbox. Yes.
You mentioned early on the role as residents, and I have a very good example. A couple weeks ago, we had a guest at a couple of through our facility, and they mentioned the role of the residents. They said, we're going around, realize that a lot of businesses are closed, but we ran into one of the locals. His name was Bob, and he helped us out with all this information. They said, we got it was the mayor. They said, we love this town. And so I wonder if you could just touch a little bit more about what you mean by the role of residents.
So in Puerto Rico, and again, it's not specific to Puerto Rico because I'm talking to CMOs across the country this is happening with, and actually I was just in Ireland and talking to the CEO of Visit Ireland. Everybody's dealing with the same thing. Prior to COVID, the big discussion was around over-tourism and what's happening with destinations like Venice, with Barcelona, with destinations that are seeing these mass throngs of tourists, and what kind of environmental footprint is that leaving in the destination. Above and beyond environmental footprint, I think people are asking themselves what are the cultural implications. When we talk about sustainability isn't just green tourism, right? Sustainability is cultural sustainability, it's socioeconomic sustainability, it's making sure that the destination isn't just for the tourists, that the destination has to be healthy for the people who actually live in it. COVID brought a lot of things to light for many destinations, specifically beach destinations and outdoor destinations in Montana, Idaho. They were experiencing a lot of irresponsible tourism. So people who were coming to the destination, leaving a lot of trash, not wearing masks where they're supposed to be wearing masks, all of those kinds of things really lit a lot of fires locally in destinations that received some of that bad tourism. And we did get some of it, not as bad as like a Miami, but we saw it. And I think coming out of COVID, we've all been asking ourselves now, how do we best prepare our destinations for the long term, right? So what does Puerto Rico look like 20 years from now, 30 years from now, if today we're not making smart decisions about who we invite to Puerto Rico and how we ask them to interact with Puerto Rico when they're here. So for us, again, it goes beyond green tourism, but we needed to talk to the residents to understand how they felt about it. And if you follow destination marketing, one of the big cautionary tales is what's happened in Hawaii over the last 10 years, where residents have essentially come out and said, we don't want tourists anymore. So imagine if you're a hotel, you're your restaurant in Hawaii, any of the islands in Hawaii, and you've got residents pushing back against tourists. So for Puerto Rico, we looked at that and said, how do we avoid that, right? How do we stay out of that space? And it's happening in destinations all around the world right now, where you see, and Venice is a great example, they're saying the same thing, they're saying, we don't want tourists here. We don't care whether they come or not. So what we have started doing is quarterly. We used to do it annually. It's become so important to us that we started to do it quarterly. We're doing resident sentiment testing. So we are, it's all online, so we're not doing any intercepts with residents, but we're doing online surveys with the local research company, and we're asking questions like, do you understand the value of tourism? Do you see tourism as being valuable to your business? Do you see tourists as bringing more opportunities to locals because more restaurants and more attractions and things like that are being built? We want to know how they're feeling about the way we're marketing Puerto Rico. So in Puerto Rico, we do lead with culture, and that's something that's very important to locals in Puerto Rico and something they take a lot of pride in. So we want to make sure the way we're marketing the destination is aligned with the way locals actually, view themselves, and that they feel like it's not exploited, right? So, thankfully, the research so far has all been generally positive. we are seeing that there are more and more people being thoughtful about the environment piece. In Puerto Rico, all beaches are public, for instance, but as more and more developers come in and build hotels and taking up space and buying up land, it's encroaching on some of that. It's a big problem. Short-term rentals in Puerto Rico, when I started 6 years ago, we had 5,000 short-term rentals. Today we have 25,000 short-term rentals. So that's driving up home prices for locals. Home prices in Puerto Rico are about 30% from 6 years ago. And there people are frustrated with that, right? I mean, so tourism does have an impact locally. It can be really, really positive. When I started 6 years ago, tourism employed about 83,000 people. Today it employs 97,000 people in Puerto Rico. So that's the good news story, right? That what we're doing, we're driving more visitation. People are coming to Puerto Rico. That's creating jobs on the island. But we've also got to see what the counter of that is and make sure that we're trying to prepare ourselves for the future of the islands. And I think, again, when I mentioned what tourism looked like 20 years ago, tourism marketers were tourism marketers. Today, we're managers, right? We're destination marketers, but we're also destination managers. We have a responsibility for stewardship of our destinations, that if we're not thinking about that right now, this isn't going to be a destination that people are going to want to come to because visitors are going to start pushing them out. So I think, we're taking more of a long tail view than we ever have, which is smart, and I think something all destinations have to be thinking about.
Hi. You briefly discussed accessibility and how important that is. How can a small business apply that to say to a website?
I'm sorry.
How accessibility? How can a small business apply that to something on their website?
Do you mean for visually impaired?
Right. Or so.
That's a technical question I don't really know the answer to. I know our team is right now working through accessibility for our website. I haven't seen what that, they just started that probably 3 or 4 months ago, so I don't know what the outcome of that is going to be or what they recommend. I know there are tools where, and actually we're seeing it more and more in social media, where someone who, we work with a lot of influencers, and an influencer will post something while they're in Puerto Rico, and then below, they post exactly what the picture looks like. So it's a blonde-haired woman sitting on the beach in a chair, so that people who are visually impaired or people who are colorblind, that they can understand through words what the picture is portraying that maybe they can't see. So I'm seeing that start to come to life, but I don't know exactly how we're going to treat that moving forward.
Yes, I have a question. So I know you said that you have surveys when you take analytics and stuff. Do you guys ever work with the businesses or the destinations and get their numbers too? Because I know business owners who track a tracker or how many people come in. Obviously, I have all the analytics. Do you guys ever work with that interface, or is it just your information?
Yeah, so we don't, but if the city's doing that in some cool way and you can tell me how, I would love that. We don't. The best we have is the STAR reports, Smith Travel Research, which is tracking hotel room nights, ADR, occupancy, all of those things. And then we also subscribe to AirDNA, which does the same thing for short-term rentals. Today we have more short-term rentals than we actually do hotel rooms. So that short-term rental information is really, really critical to understand which regions of the island they're staying in, how much money they're spending, and all of that stuff. So right now, primarily the data that we're getting input from businesses is related to lodging. We don't have a lot of big attractions in Puerto Rico. The biggest one is probably El Yunque, which is the rainforest, and it's a federal park, so they do give us a lot of numbers. But it would be difficult for us to get people to provide that information for us in a consistent way. We would have to,
Just to turn it back over to the panel a little bit, do you guys feel like you have been able to do that or see some of the reflections of local events happening within your stores compared to what maybe Visit Madison or the city or Main Street has provided back to you, like, hey, we have Girls Weekend coming up. How many people actually booked with you that said this was for Girls Weekend? Like that anecdotal data versus that boots on the ground data.
Yeah, so we have an immense amount of data at our disposal that we get from our guests coming in. We are fortunate that we are a Marriott property. They track a ton of things for us, so we're able to tap into that. But a big thing for us, every single check-in gets asked, what brings you to town? And we're able to track that in our computer system, and then we can print out reports and it will tell us our top 30 accounts per month or week or whatever. So if it's Girls Weekend, if it's regatta, if it's a certain business, we're able to really dial that in, and that's super helpful for us. And kind of on that note, I think it is interesting to know, I'm going a little off topic, but we'll get back, sorry. I think it is interesting, growing up in Madison, working with Madison Main Street, I always, in my head, had an idea of what our visitor looked like, and I always thought it was mostly tourists coming to town, and that's why people were in Madison. And since being at the hotel and using this data that we have, I found that over 60% of our overnight guests are business travelers. They're not leisure travelers, and I even just got a report from Marriott International yesterday that said globally in Q1 of 2024, 58% of room nights were taken by group and business travelers, which means that only 42% is actually leisure. So that's just interesting to note, and I think it's important for you guys to hear. I had a conversation just this morning with one of our business travelers who comes and stays with us 4 nights a week, has for a very long time, and will continue to do so. And he said, I love to golf, but none of the golf courses in Madison are open when I get off work. And I think that was such a light bulb moment, because when we think about leisure travelers, they have completely different needs than our business travelers. But if 60% of the people coming and staying overnight are business travelers, maybe we do need to look at what can we do to help them out. So I think that's, I'll bring it back to the data here. So I think that data really does help me, and hopefully I can work with some of you and give you that information so that you might be able to better your business with that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I do think there is opportunity, just working with the Main Street committees, to have, whether it's a quarterly meeting and we are able to offer some of that Placer ID, or what's it called? Placer AI data. Because, like, especially as a new business owner, I know nothing of what big weekends are big, and I know Madison is like, you never know what's going to happen each day. But going into a new business ownership, I have no idea what any of that information is, and I don't always know to ask the question. So if there's a way to come up with a standard template of a report that maybe goes out monthly, just so, like, planning for the next month for business owners and different things like that, of like, oh, Memorial Day weekend, should we be open? Are we getting that traffic on Memorial Day weekend? Because not everybody has staff to, be open every day. But I think that would be very helpful, and then also having quarterly meetings with Main Street where business owners are welcome to come to and talk out some of those numbers and talk about what's upcoming. And I know we've talked about that as the committee member to do that. It's just prioritizing it to make it happen. But I think those would be super, super helpful if we're able. I know that there's certain privacy issues or different things that you can't share, but even if it's just going on an email chain each month to report those numbers.
I would definitely enforce.
So I just wanted to say, as a small business and limited marketing, money, time, energy, resource, I kind of roughed things out a year in advance for like the big thing. I've been in business for 18 years, and you've been for 8. But if you're aggregating data, and I understand some of it's sensitive, but your top 3 weekends are this, and we saw over the last 2 years that on those weekends, our visitors were coming from ABC, and after that weekend, they were going to XYZ. If that's something that can be shared out, small businesses can tailor their marketing towards, say, the business trip, or like you said, that's a larger percentage than you thought, or a golf course owner could be like, oh, this is something I never knew that. Like, for a small business with limited time and resources, to somehow get that information out would just be an amazing that would be like a huge thing, I would think.
That's a great thought. That's probably when I talk to businesses, you know, if I'm calling them up or I'm in shopping or visiting, I try to say, well, how have your weekends been? You know, get that anecdotal data from them. But if we can find a way to formalize, I've made a couple notes here how we might do that. Maybe it's with the Main Street Weekly Ask. Maybe there's a simple form that goes out to some of our businesses that just says, tell us about your week. How did it go? What are you seeing foot traffic up or down compared to this time last year or something like that? I think that'd be great. And then we can get some information from businesses, and then we can find a way to share some of that information as well and kind of get that back and forth. Because there is a lot of data that we're trying to dig through, but we can have even more and harness that even better.
I'll just add that this is an evolving tool for us. It hasn't been available very long. None of us had invested in data analytics like we are now in the past, figuring out how we compile it and use it and make that strategic. Takes time, and then how do we share it out to all these different diverse groups that could benefit from it? There's some general information that everybody can probably learn from about who's coming and going, and those weekends that Andrew was talking about throughout the course of the year, and then refining it. That's going to require groups like Madison Main Street, VMI, Board of Tourism, and the city working together to figure out what information helps you, what information is going to be making a difference. And then the best information you're ever going to get is what you collect with people coming in and spending money in your stores. You learn an awful lot about who your target market is by those who are visiting your businesses, I think.
Something that was relative to an earlier question about the reports and are they available and stuff. Last year we started to put together an annual report. We have a 2022 and then we just released our 2023. We try to email us out if you're on our database. We try to capture all that first-party data and send you emails on what's going on. And so this is available on our website under Connect and then Resources. So the 2022 there is a link. This 2023 is flippable. You can download it. And in here is just, it's kind of like a VMI report card, but also industry health and what that looks like. And the economic impact report for the year prior is kind of condensed down in there. But we also have that report that is available to you in its entirety. So that is available and has helped many businesses from an economic standpoint, what's going on in Jefferson County. So they're just add to that.
We're getting toward the end of our time, but I think we've got time for one or two more questions or comments. Beth?
I would just like to share, it's a really cool situation, but we're talking about trying to get real time down. Okay. So I had a unique situation where I had two women who follow on social media and come to the shop and for the first time. And so I asked them if they would please let me track what they did for the entire weekend in town, where they went, how much money they spent, how long they stayed there, what they bought, what they ate, all of this stuff. And you guys would be amazed at what two women from Texas can spend in a weekend in town here. Honestly, so two women spent $7,000. Okay? And what was awesome is they followed me. They did Madison. They went and hit it hard, which was the most concrete, real, solid, 100% genuine organic data that you can gather just by asking them. And when Leah talked about being a responsibility manager, that is what we do. We're all part of that. A business owner is a responsibility manager for their overall experience when they get here. Do you abide by your business hours? Are you open? Do you have a full menu? All of those different things, but just asking them when they come in the door, what brought you here? I had two people that were in from Oklahoma this week, And they had come and said, "Mom, the hike." I'm like, "Well, we have places to hike in Lowell." But they're like, they heard about Madison. They heard about Madison because they followed hashtag Madison, Indiana on Instagram. So if you go on hashtag Indiana, you'll see all these photos that come up. You'll see James Dell, we got a cute little picture in there, you there. I mean, there are all these different things, and there was a picture of the falls. There were big pictures of people drinking wine. They weren't drinking wine at the falls, but they thought that they could do that. Right, but anyway, that was organic knowledge acquired just by asking, being a responsibility manager by encouraging them to go out, to hit, to eat, to hike, to talk, to walk, to visit. And it's so interesting because when we talk about owning, what can you own? You own that space that you have. You own that time that you're with your customer because remember, they came to you and you're open and that you are giving them this experience. So that to me was just a really cool thing to find out how much money they spend. You know, and it was really interesting to know where they spent it. And they hit, like I said, they hit a lot of people. So yeah, it was awesome. But being a responsibility manager is a crucial part in the link of tourism when it finally trickles into your staff.
Well, I bet it was a lot of times. That
Yeah.
would be too bad.
Great case study.
Coming back in.
Hey, real quick, I'm sorry, I want to interject something. It's along with what Beth is saying here. So, I know Leah had mentioned something, rising tide raises all ships. Okay. Yeah, rising tide raises all ships. So I think that's really important based on what we're talking about with the people who came here and had an experience, whether it's a full menu or if it's open. Because if you state something, you're not a responsible manager, and it comes into your shop, the business is closed, and you provide us with a visitor experience. So I think it's just really important that when we do get hit on the small business owner side, we are saying open, or we do have the menu that we say we're offering online, or we are open with the business hours that we're saying we're open online. So I think that consistency helps the overall visitor experience and the overall experience in Madison. So I just think that's a really important piece that goes along with what you were saying, and what Dave pointed that out too, because I think that's where the alignment has to come through from Visit Madison. There's been a lot of talk about, analyzing the data and gathering data and all that information. I think what would be really helpful is having that visitor profile that you're working on the strategic plan, push that down, and then we can all align as small business owners with that vision, but also it's our responsibility to go forward with what our expectations are that we're setting for our business.
Thank you, Matt. Matt chairs our Economic Vitality Committee for Main Street. So if you're interested in that, let him know.
Let me know, okay, make it work.
Yes. Justin's going to get the final question before we have tons of questions at the bar.
Sure. My question is, I'm a big fan of reports, I'm a big fan of data, but that's all historical information. That stuff that's already occurred in the past. We might be able to use it to deduce how we can do stuff in the future. But my question would be, maybe Leah, something you can speak to. So I'm always thinking about future trends, where are we heading, where are we going? So if there's a measure that you've said that we need to hit this number for Puerto Rico, or we want this number of visitors, we see an upper trajectory. So then how do we adapt, or how would Madison or how would Puerto Rico adapt if we see a negative slope, or we're not hitting the measures we want to hit? So is there something that you would go into to say okay, this is a crisis, there might be a little crisis management, because maybe we're seeing a dip in visitors, or maybe there's some type of change going. How would you be out in front of that then you could adapt and maybe change the trajectory to where it doesn't become a continuing trend? One-offs can happen, but when trends occur, that's when I start getting a little bit of hair on fire. So maybe that's something.
Sure. I'll tell you what we do, again, it goes back to research, and I don't want to spend the CVB's entire budget in research when I leave here, but we do an economic forecast. So we're doing, we again use tools of economics, and we're looking at economic impact data on an annual basis. So now that we've been open 6 years, we kind of have 6 years of economic impact, and we're able to forecast out. We do an annual forecast. He's able to do a 5-year forecast for us as well. It's taking into account inflation rates. It's taking into account travel expenditures. It's taking into account just general macroeconomic factors, right? So that's very, very important. It takes into account how many hotel rooms do we have in the pipeline, because we've got, I don't know, 8 or 9 hotels that are supposed to open next year. We've got some hotels that closed after Maria, and now they're reopening. So all of those factors kind of go into this magical mix of economic forecasting. Trends certainly are important as well. They can change quite a bit. And the economic forecast can too. I mean, for the last 3 years, our agencies and our research companies have been forecasting the economic slowdown, and we've had 3 of Puerto Rico's best, biggest years in terms of visitation, in terms of revenue generation, in terms of lodging tax, in the history of the island. So we haven't hit that mountaintop yet, but I do think it's important. I'm not going to sit here and say I have a 5-year plan, I have a 10-year plan. We don't have a 10-year plan. Some days we're just trying to keep our heads above water. But I do think having a year plan, having a 3-year plan, and being able to forecast out, what you think may be happening is valuable. Our researchers tend to be pretty conservative, but it's really helpful for us when we have to go to the legislature and say, hey, we're going to need more money when there's headwinds coming, whether that's an economic slowdown, whether, they're predicting this year is going to be the most active hurricane season in the history of the Caribbean. So how can we prepare for that and start building a case study knowing that some of these things may happen and may impact tourism for the destination? So it's a little bit of, the magic 8 ball. We don't know all of these factors, but there are some things that we can forecast using economic impact data and historicals to be able to, sort of develop a trajectory. Do we need Ms. Congresswoman?
It's kind of another question, so I apologize. But I think going along with this question of, say you have your forecast and it's just not going as planned. What type of content would you push out to then try to reverse that? I know it's not always going to be successful, but what would be some things that you would prioritize in that time?
Thank you. So that does happen. And in fact, we're looking at that right now because the fall is looking a little bit soft for us. It typically is. It's hurricane season, so we're kind of used to that. We're trying to do quick wins. When we talk to our agencies and I talk to our internal teams, what are quick wins? Because some things are very, very long tail. If we're drafting up a pitch for the New York Times, that's a 6-month process, right? But what can we do today to sort of impact the next couple of months? Some easy things for us are influencers and travel writers. We can get an influencer to the destination next weekend, and it might cost us a few $1,000s, and depending on what hotel capacity is, a couple of hoteliers might give us a free room, might give us some restaurant vouchers. It's a low investment, quick return kind of activity that really helps us move the needle. Same with writers. If you've been to maybe someone follows you on social media, maybe you go to an event, you meet somebody who contributes to like a AAA publication or Midwest Living, you can invite them down for a weekend. Now that might be more of a 2 to 3 month lead time because of going to print. But there's writers who are doing online content all the time. So I really focus on earned media and some of those really quick wins with influencer and social media. We do not do discounting. It's something that Puerto Rico did way back in the day. Buy 2 nights, get a 3rd night free. It just devalues the destination. So we kind of have a strategy that is not discount. But I think for small businesses, you have a lot more flexibility to think through, you know, is there something that you can incentivize people with? If you don't want to do a discount, is it an added value? We've been trying to convince our industry to really think about the value add and what you're putting on top of your offer versus discounting it. You know what I'm saying? Because I think from a consumer standpoint, it seems like, oh, we're getting something extra. So when you check in, we're going to put a charcuterie board in your room, or you're going to get a free paddleboarding lesson when you book 2 nights. It's adding something versus trying to devalue the product by doing a 10% discount, a 20% discount. So I think for small businesses, that's something that can work too. You've got to do that quick incentive to try to get them through the door and take action.
We need to wind up, and I think we could go another hour with questions and comments. This has been wonderful. I want to thank Victoria, Tyler, Sarah, Mayor Courtney, and Andrew for the wonderful responses and everything you're doing and the partnerships that we have. And Leah, this is terrific. And I also want to thank everybody who's sitting in this audience who devoted the time this afternoon. You all have been terrific. And so thank you very much. I turn it back to you.
Underneath your seat, so please take that with you. I really appreciate your time and your expertise and everything you all do for Madison. I took away so many ideas. Anyone who knows me or that's volunteered with us, I think I'm always full of ideas. I don't know if they're always good or bad, but lots of ideas. So I'm sure you guys have all of those swimming in your head as well. So just shortly after a little break, an announcement, we will all head over to the lobby here at the Fairfield. And thank you again to German American Bank for sponsoring this event and I believe the happy hour that we're going to have. So a quick round of applause to our German American folks. And of course, thank you so much, Leah. I would like to think we worked really hard to get you here, but it was pretty easy once Matt and Jenny put that idea out there, so we really appreciate that. So Matt, I think you have control of my computer, and if you would mind to maybe hit the next slide. Okay, does anyone want to shout out some ideas of what you think the big announcement is? Don't be shy. I'm looking at Alex. Do you have any ideas? No. Okay, you guys are still thinking about the topic. So, we'll just go ahead and announce it. Next slide. Just kidding. If I could go ahead and actually have Derek and Jenny come on up here, and Alicia, if you could stand up too, and Matt. So several of you in the room have been a part of different committees: economic vitality, design, promotions, farmers market. Thank you guys, sorry. So over the last year, we've had several workshops with this committee of people and these volunteers. We've had so many of these ideas, exactly what you guys are talking about. I have a hostess that's gathering information as they come here. I'm asking my customers, what are they doing? Austin, Main Street, how are we going to help get this info to our business owners? How do I also know how to do these different things, like add my Google listing? Who do I talk to? Who are the experts? So we're super excited to announce that next year, 2025, we're actually going to start a small business accreditation program thanks to the help of German American Bank. So, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jenny just to talk a little bit about why they wanted to do this and just kind of some brief overview of what this is going to look like. We're super excited. This is a very structured program. We're already talking to experts, and it will be something you guys won't want to miss. So, Jenny.
Thanks, Austin. Our small businesses are the backbone of our community, and we know that, and you're so important to us. The last couple of years, thanks to Madison Main Street's partnership with us, there have been so many opportunities for education. Several of you I know. How many of you attended one of the small business workshops in the last 2 years? Yes. Did you find something, some piece of information in that workshop that you applied to your business? Yes. So that concept, think about all of the pieces and all of the things that you've learned, okay, plus more. And what we are going to be doing is putting this together in an accreditation program. And we're talking about some really awesome ideas and really great things that are going to come. So it's going to have a lot of industry experts, as we've had in the past. Thanks to Leah came today, which was awesome, and we hope to just continue that, those experts. And then we are also going to have a grant opportunity. We are contributing some funds to Madison Main Street so that they can grant some money out to a lucky business that completes this accreditation program. So we do think that it's so important to have some of the very, very basics. And I know, Derek, you work really closely with small businesses as they're getting up and running, or some of the existing small businesses that are needing funding, and there are some gaps, I know, and some things. Can you talk just for a brief second about one or two things that might be a topic in those workshops?
Yeah, sure. We're really excited to do this. I think it's something that we have kind of talked about as a group for over 2 years now. And as we've moved kind of through this entire series, right, we've talked about what the feedback that we get kind of on our post surveys of what you guys want to hear, what you guys would like to learn more about. And so we're going to try to wrap this in about a 10, kind of like a 10 or 11 lesson series. And each night we'll have a kind of a subject or a topic, right? And each topic will have a subject matter expert, right, an SME, and then probably somebody that's in that business, in that industry, something there to really kind of lend that personal touch to you, right, that you can lean on, and some people to get to know. So we're talking about things kind of like something that's near and dear to my heart, right, which is kind of like business cash flow, right? I'm a commercial banker. I started on the credit underwriting side, so those things that business owners don't know, they're kind of their cash flow, those numbers, and then what it means to get to the point to borrow money, right? How to do that, right? We're going to try to work with some accountants, some lawyers. Off the top of my head, let me recover more, right? Some social media experts, right? Social media is one we get all the time. We hit on that one a little bit today, right? So those types of topics, right? Be very specialized in them. Have someone that can really give you all the ins and outs of it, and really bring something away from it, right? And then at the end of it, hopefully provide you with some money that you can stick right into your business, right, and make you guys successful.
So we hope that you are as excited as we are. Our wonderful panelists, again, thank you all. They walked away with a nice little gift bag from Pearl Plate, and a great little mug, and some chocolates from Coco Safari. And we just thought we would share some more downtown business goodness with all of you. There are 4 of you that have on your table, and there's a little red notebook, and on that notebook, on 4 of you, have a really big sticker that was created by a local artist here in Madison. And if you have one of those and would like to come and see me, I have 4 gift cards. I have the red card for the red restaurants, I have Analog Coffee, I have Betty Jeffries, and I have Old Time Marketplace. So, if you've got one of those cards, come on up. Okay, there's 2. It's going to be really big. Show them what it looks like. It looks like that. And if you have an empty spot at your table, you better be looking. Do you have a preference? Got 2 more? All right. Come and get it. Okay, 1 here. Come on up. And then 1 more. If you have it, you can claim it later. It's okay. Come find me, because I have an Analog Coffee gift card for you. Okay? So, Austin, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap us up.
Thank you all so much for being here. Quick round of applause to Durban American for helping us take the success of this. Thank you all again for being here, because I look around the room, there's so many of you that are already putting in this work and trying to do a lot of this, and everything that we're doing, our organizations are doing our review for the businesses and for our residents and our prospective visitors here. So thank you all so much for being here. I won't talk much longer.